In this video, I'd like to talk about 3 things that one can do to help speed up the language learning process. Now, the reality is there's a ton of information on the internet already about how to learn a language or about how to learn about different languages, specifically how to pronounce the vowels, consonants, etc. One of the reasons I wanted to do this, not because these 3 things are the end-all answer to learning a language, or I'm making promises that you'll be able to learn a language in 5 days or something like that. These are just 3 things that I feel like are, from my experience, from my research, and then from putting them into practice, are some of the most effective things to help speed up language learning. So I hope that they'll help you as well. The issue that many people run into is, while there's quite a bit of information on a language itself, for example, information on how to pronounce vowels, consonants, etc., oftentimes people don't know what to do with this information, how to effectively put it into their memory so that they have it memorized and can use it as they want to. So this information will help do that. Now, the first thing on this list of 3 things, number 1, is spaced repetition. So what is spaced repetition and why should we use it? Well, to help illustrate why spaced repetition is valuable and what it is, let's talk about how we forget. So if you look at the chart here I have up on the screen, called the forgetting curve, this is accepted science on how we forget things. When we learn something for the first time, when we get a piece of information for the first time, perhaps when we hear a new vocabulary word and we try to think about it and try to remember it for the first time, we're on this red line here, way up at the very top. Right up at this spot. So you start here, first time. But as you can see, according to this red line, you forget it quite quickly. You go down this line. So in a short period of time, if you just hear it that one time, then it exponentially goes out of your memory, or is harder to recall. This is why when many people cram for a test, they put a bunch of information in there, and maybe they do well in the test, but not long after that, it's gone. So what we need to be able to remember is recall. Perhaps a test, perhaps we're tested on our memory is tested, or we have some means of bringing it back to our mind. When that happens, say that you've gone like a part of a day or so, you're forgetting, but you have this recall. When you recall, it goes zoop, all the way back up to the very top. So now you're back up here. But pay attention to this line. Notice it's not as steep as it was before. So with one recall, it takes longer to forget. As you go down, you don't get quite nearly as far down near the bottom, down near having forgotten. If you have another recall, it goes back up to the top. And then again, the line gets less steep. So basically the way things work, say we have a piece of information, we have a vocabulary word, a phrase, whatever. If we are able to repeat that information over a day, a few days, multiple times, a week, a year, 2 years, the more that as we repeat that over time, it becomes more difficult and more difficult to forget. It becomes part of our long-term memory. So this is one of the most effective means of memorizing things and being able to learn a language. And many people think that they have a bad memory, and it is true in some cases because of brain damage or drugs or any number of things. But for the most part, most people just simply don't know how their memory works. This is a valuable piece of information. It's helped me a lot personally in setting up a study routine, and we'll talk about that as we go further through the video. So that's number 1, spaced repetition. Let's talk about number 2 now. Now, number 2 is, let's look at this picture here. Number 2 is, don't mistake laziness for efficiency. Say that again. Don't mistake laziness for efficiency. Now, this is a principle that applies to a ton of things. So let's illustrate this concept with a picture, 2 pictures, sorry. The first one is how most people perceive that learning a language will happen. They think that they're going to get a book or an app. They're going to download an app. They're going to take a class. And when they do that, that class, that app, that book, whatever, is just going to pour the language into their head. And bam, now they know it. They know everything. They can talk to people. They're perfectly fluent. That's how it works. Just pour it in. There you go. As you can probably tell by the tone of my voice, it doesn't work that way. But it really, really does not work that way. So how could we better illustrate it, how it does work? I think this picture for me illustrates how it works. Learning a language is like exercise. It's like training. It's like training for the Olympics, depending on what kind of learning you're wanting to do. But basically, when it comes down to it, you must put forth effort to gain benefits. If it seems easy, just like exercising, if you don't feel the burn, so to speak, you're not gaining the benefit from it. So what are some examples of this, good and bad examples? One of the first and worst examples, I think, is using Google Translate. Using Google Translate is for putting out something in that language is a lot like hiring a personal trainer and expecting him to do the exercising for you. What kind of benefit are you going to get from that? Zero. Google Translate can be used as a tool, per se, in some cases, but if you don't feel that you have to put forth strong mental effort, you won't be gaining the benefit from it. Oftentimes people use applications with pre-made card packs of vocabulary. Not to say that it's wrong necessarily, but think about it. Are you the one that prepared those words? Are you the one that met those vocabulary words out in the wild, so to speak, and collected them? Or did somebody else do all the work for you, and now you just have to press yes or no, I remember, I don't remember. You definitely will gain some benefit from that, but the principle is efficiency and laziness are not the same thing. Efficiency and laziness sometimes look alike, but they're not. So make sure to put forth real effort when learning. You can do things. So I said I would do some good examples too. An example of a good way that is actually efficiency and not laziness is think about a dictionary, using a dictionary. Some people like to use a book. Some people like to use a digital dictionary. A digital dictionary oftentimes is much faster. You can use a computer to search for a word in a second. Does turning pages help you learn a language? No, not necessarily. So that's efficiency. If you can get to the word faster, that's better. So learning the difference between those two things will help you vastly in learning a language. So that's number 2. Don't mistake laziness for efficiency. Let's talk about number 3. Number 3 kind of brings things together. Number 3 is reading is the stepping stone into a language. Again, reading is a stepping stone into a language. And I meant to say is a stepping stone into a language, because reading isn't the only way into a language, but it has a lot of unexpected benefits. I wanted to talk about some of those benefits. First of all, reading helps you build vocabulary. You don't need a speaker there, a native speaker to help you learn vocabulary. You can literally pick up a piece of text, a book, whatever, and you can pick up a dictionary, and you can just start looking up every word you don't know and putting them into flashcards, and your vocabulary will increase exponentially if you practice those vocabulary words. Another unexpected benefit, as you'll see from my highlights here, is that every language has a group of high-frequency vocabulary words. These are words that glue the language together. They're highly important, and every language uses them continuously. So let's just say, if you understand this, you know English, but let's just say you didn't know English, and you met the word is, for the first time. Just in this paragraph, you can see there's numerous times where that single word comes up. So as you read through this, if you looked up is in a dictionary and you get to the next is, you're going to go, oh yeah, there you have your repetition. It goes back to the top. You meet it again. Oh, is. Okay, it goes back to the top. Again, it goes to the top. Think about that. If you made a practice of reading every single day, how many times would you run into this word? It would be hundreds of times. So reading is a natural way to practice spaced repetition if you include understanding, as in looking up the definitions and reading for the purpose of understanding, not just for correct pronunciation. If you continuously read but you don't understand, you don't gain the full benefits of it. Another unexpected benefit is that oftentimes we'll think of words in the sense of colloquialism, or in the sense of vocabulary words, or we'll think of grammar. And grammar is important too, and you get grammar out of reading as well. But in between there is something called colloquialisms, which is words that go together in a certain way. So to illustrate what that is, if I were to come up to you, and in English I said to you, "What is your current emotional state?" The words I used were technically correct. The words I used were technically understandable, but they were strange. And that's because words are supposed to go in a certain order and together in certain ways. There's obviously room for wiggle room, but many phrases or words, they always go together. Peanut butter, jelly, black, white, etc., etc. So in English we'll say, "How are you doing?" Or if you're Australian, say, "How are you going?" But we would never say, "What is your current emotional state?" This is something you pick up from reading as well. So if you gain the benefit of, or if you make a practice of reading regularly with the purpose of understanding the vocabulary, understanding what you're reading, you'll gain extraordinary benefits from it. Now, what is a suggested study routine, or perhaps some way we could put this into practical application, these three things that we've learned? Well, this number 2 is easy enough because now we know we need to work to be able to get something. But let's talk about the first 2. Just for example, we could make it our practice to every day at a certain time pick up some text, a book, even a children's book, something simple, depends on our level, and a dictionary. Start from the first word and just start looking up every word that we don't know. Look up every word that you don't know, put it into a flashcard, whether it's a flashcard application or on paper flashcards or whatever. Then as you do this, make it your habit to, perhaps you could say, for the first 15 minutes, you practice flashcards, the flashcards you built up, and of course you would practice the same ones over time, maybe one group of flashcards for a whole week or more, or if you have an app, it arranges them automatically. And then for the next 15 minutes, you do more reading and looking at more vocabulary, putting it into flashcards. There you have just 30 minutes a day. You could definitely do more than that, and you get more benefit, just like training, just like exercise. But with that method over time, you would run into fewer and fewer words that you don't understand. You would be able to put those into your vocabulary. You've practiced them with flashcards, so therefore you can use them when you speak with people. And it would be a way of speeding up your language learning. There's just a few closing notes, or a few closing thoughts. I like to just emphasize this is not the end-all answer to how to learn a language. There's many different methods. Many work for different people, different ways. I personally like these the most, so therefore I'm recommending them. There are a ton of other things, though, that you can do to mix things up, to learn a language, to be beneficial. Some of the other things I personally like to do are listening to audio. Now, you can watch movies. Movies have visuals included in them, but personally I prefer to listen to audio because I don't have a lot of time to sit down and watch a movie. But I can listen to audio in the language, my target language, while I'm washing the car, washing the dishes, walking from place to place, any number of things. An additional benefit of listening to audio is, as you hear words, you will have constantly, within an hour or two, you'll have hundreds of repetitions of certain vocabulary words. So if you do that often, you'll find that you'll have, instead of you're grasping for vocabulary words as they're floating away, it'll feel like vocabulary words are coming and pecking in the head like birds. They'll just be in your memory like that. So that is very beneficial. Another thing I personally like to do is mnemonics. Mnemonics are memory hooks that help you to learn a new vocabulary word. So a recent one in Thai, the word I learned, Thai word is pisut. It means to prove. So you think of like a lawyer wearing a suit that's like a giant P, and he's saying if pisut means to prove, pisut means to prove. So he's saying, as long as I'm wearing this pisut, I can prove anything. So you can do it in your head, you can write them down, make pictures, whatever. Watching movies is another very beneficial thing that's helpful. And then trying to teach the things you've learned to other people. Teaching is proven to be one of the most effective means of memorizing and learning things yourself. Trying to teach it because for lots of reasons. So those are some other things. Again, the 3 things I mentioned: spaced repetition, not mistaking laziness for efficiency, and reading are my 3 favorite things. There's many other things you can do, but I hope these things helped you. As I said, teaching helps one to learn, and that's part of the reasons I'm making these videos, to help you learn so that I can help myself learn and everyone benefit. So I hope you gain the benefit from that, and we'll see you in the next video. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the YouTube comment section below. All right, thank you.